got Turkey. Down here you got Somalia. Over here, of course, Afghanistan and Pakistan. That's Israel. That small little bastion of freedom and democracy in a sea of despots, dictators, theocrats, and autocrats. Now, what is concerning Israel right now? With Hosni Mubarak being deposed, you have for the first time Iranian warships transiting through the Suez Canal in 30 years. The oil and gas pipeline that goes from Egypt into Israel has been attacked 4 times. Egypt brokered this reconciliation pact between Hamas and Fatah. The Egyptian foreign minister met with the foreign minister of Iran, talking about coming to some type of agreement or settlement. We know what just happened in Libya. We know what's happening up here in Syria. But here in the Gaza Strip, where you have Hamas, Islamic Jihad, and a coordinated group of other terrorist organizations. Here in Lebanon, southern Lebanon, where I stood and I looked down in Lebanon. Southern Lebanon is completely controlled by Hezbollah. And Hezbollah now, since the Second Lebanon War, has rearmed and refitted themselves where there are now 50,000 rockets and missiles. They're in southern Lebanon. The United Nations has what they call an intervention force in southern Lebanon, Italian, Spanish contingent. They are now refusing to go into these different towns and villages in southern Lebanon because Hezbollah is now attacking them. Recently, they just killed about 6 Spanish soldiers. That's why Israel has to have the Golan Heights, because when you stand on the Golan Heights and you look across the Sea of Galilee, you can understand the strategic importance of it. That's why Israel has to have a protected border. That's why Israel has to finally come to the realization, we have to come to the realization, that their security is so important. When you look at this greater neighborhood in which they live. Turkey is finding themselves becoming more Islamist and more anti-Israeli. We know that Iran is the country that is fueling all of this unrest. And we know that at the end of the year, American forces are supposed to leave Iraq. While in Iraq, Muqtada al-Sadr has returned, and his mighty army is strengthening itself once again based upon the support coming from Iran. That's the neighborhood that Israel is living in. Oh. Strategic depth. There was a place that I stood in Israel, and I could see the entire industrial base, 22 miles, from Ashdod up to Netanya. One piece of high ground dominated that entire coastal plain of Israel, from Tel Aviv included. 1.5 million Israelis. And that piece of ground that I stood on was just inside the quote-unquote green line of the West Bank. So this is what we have to have. Israel's got to defend itself. We've got to have a credible peace partner that will recognize the state of Israel and will denounce terrorism. This is so important. It has to be an undivided Jerusalem. It cannot be a divided Jerusalem. I had the great opportunity to run around the old city 3 times while I was there. It's an incredible experience to run around the old city of Jerusalem. That climbing that hill in Mount Zion almost killed me, but that's okay. Next month is a critical event in the United Nations because they're going to bring forth this declaration of a unilateral Palestinian state. The United States must vote against it. The United States must vote against it in the Security Council. The United States cannot continue to provide the millions upon millions of dollars of support to a Palestinian authority which will not recognize the modern-day state of Israel. And we have to dismantle the terrorist threat that threatens Israel. You know, probably the most emotional thing was when a woman came up to brief us, and she was down from southern Israel, and she talked about how her child spends most of his day in a bomb shelter. That's not a way to live. And I don't think any of us here want our children to grow up living in that type of environment. But yet, our greatest ally